Good morning. My name is Owen Hasson. I'm the traffic incident manager for MoDOT, the state of Missouri. Been here about 36 years, and it was a little bit younger view of myself there, Paul. Not terribly long ago, younger and thinner self that I do. But today I'm going to go over we had a full-scale exercise back in September of last year, and we did some concentrating on some of the multiple drone flights that were that's happening on a lot of these incidents that are coming up on there. Lots of us have done full-scale exercises before, but this one had incorporated with a little bit extra focus on drone exercise. Next slide, please. I just want to go over a few quick facts over Missouri. I do this locally for our own selves, and I thought it'd be kind of good to share, especially being one of the known flyover states in the Midwest, where Missouri kind of stands and ranks. Next slide, please. So Missouri, we're the seventh largest state highway system in the nation. We do have a lot of the alphabet, I call them alphabet soup routes, the letter A, the route numbers and things like that many states will have supported by the counties, but we take care of those and maintain those in the state of Missouri. And we have the fifth largest nationally on the interstate highway system too, for the standings for Missouri. Next slide, please. And coming up here in Missouri, we have our largest project that we've ever implemented. It's we're redoing I-70, which cuts straight across the state of Missouri. It's 200 miles of redoing I-70. We'll be getting new pavement and adding additional lanes. So it'll be 3 lanes each direction, 6 lanes total, divided highway all the way across the state of Missouri. It's a $2.8 billion project that's being released and starting this year, and it really has a lot of focus on traffic incident management. I just left a meeting yesterday where we're starting out in about central Missouri, talking about TIM for this particular project. Next slide, please. And next slide on that. So Missouri has the second and sixth largest freight rail hubs in the United States, the second being in Kansas City and the sixth in St. Louis. Next slide. And we have 17 river ports and the third largest U.S. inland port. I know that the Key Bridge got hit out in Baltimore at one of their large ports. We have the third largest inland port in the nation, and actually it's unique to the St. Louis region because at that point there, typically the Mississippi freezes in the wintertime above St. Louis, and it usually stays free flowing below it. So we have a lot of freight and rail that come into the area, opening up the waterways below the St. Louis area, all part of that transportation aspect of it. Next slide, please. And we have, between our trucks, planes, trains, air freight, everything else, we move about $1.1 trillion worth of revenue through Missouri. Next slide. And that kind of takes us to the concentration or the importance of traffic incident management on everything that's flowing through the state of Missouri. So we concentrate especially along our interstate systems. We have 3 major interstates that run through Missouri between I-44, I-55, and I-70, all converging into the St. Louis area where we have the large rail hubs and the inland ports going on to there. We had held this out back in September 2023. Next slide, please. And we started planning for it back in May of, so it takes a lot of planning. If anyone has put together a full-scale exercise in their region or area, you know, it takes quite a few meetings to bring everybody together, figure out what you want to do, who the players are going to be, even where you're going to hold it, and then what the outcome is from it. So we started our planning and participation back in May of 2023 to hold it back in September 6th of 2023. Next slide, please. And when we held it, we had various local responders partners that, and we conducted that multi-agency coordination. We did it in the very center of Missouri. It's kind of the map there. So we held it right in the smack dab center of Missouri at our highway patrol track. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a few more slides. Next slide, please. And it incorporated, for this, we incorporated a multi-vehicle crash. So that was one of the first things we worked on, trying to decide how are we going to develop this? What do we want to do? We did know that we wanted to involve multiple drone flights on this particular one, to bring in that drone boss idea, as Paul was talking about. I'll bring that up a little bit more. But what else did we want to participate in, and what all did we want to do? For it. So we had our drone boss idea, which is really the flight operations supervisors. Lots of discussions got into that, especially from our NIMS experts in those particular, naming everything right. The term drone boss is not an appropriate saying for it. It's the flight operations supervisor, but it just didn't seem to come across, at least for our team, that quite so smooth. It's like, hey, who's in charge of the drones, or who's going to be tracking all this stuff? So the term drone boss is quickly got adopted and was started to be used quite a bit during this exercise. And who's going to manage all those multiple UAS flights, if the life flight's coming in, or what altitudes and things like that, or tracking who's who in the zoo on this type of scenario that's going on. Next slide, please. So on the players, and if you could just about every 3 seconds or so kind of click through there. So we had multiple partners and players. From MoDOT, and we had the Jefferson City Fire Department, First Student Transportation to transport folks, Highway Patrol, that's not a prison guard tower, that was one of their towers to monitor the scene, our emergency management from the county that was involved into it. American Red Cross was there. We had Cole County EMS that participated onto it. We actually had news media out there, and they were participating. Not just we had them out there filming the whole thing to do a story on it, but they were one of the participants during our TIM exercise. Missouri Task Force 1, which gets deployed throughout the nation for different aspects of things. Jefferson City Police were involved into it. Kendall's Towing, which is a local towing agency from Central Missouri, and we have a thing called Barrel Bob, and we introduced old Buckle Bob, who was our victim, one of the victims that we brought into it. Next slide, please. So lots of players involved into it. We held it out on the Missouri Highway Patrols. They have a controlled track out there. It's a closed track. They use it for emergency vehicle operation training, for their EVOC training. It's a nice long track, over a mile long. It has multiple curves, turns, multiple roadways, shoulders. They use it for their training, and that was a perfect opportunity and to hold it, have it there. And part of the coordination was, when is the track open? Because as they run their academies, their 6-month academies, they do a lot of driving out there, and then they'll have it open to other agencies. So the track is usually fairly busy. So we had to book time frames where we could use the track and actually start moving some equipment into it. That the location of the track is right next to our state emergency operations center and by the National Guard. It created some issues for flight operations, not only because it was close to one of the airports and we had restricted space, but the National Guard definitely did not want to. We could fly Skydio over the whole area, but they did not want the DJI drones flying over any of the property on any of the federal property in the area because of the China thing, if you're familiar with the drones. So lots of internal discussions about how to work things out and make sure that all the partners were good with the tools, equipment, and the scenario that we were running through this. Next slide, please. And for the UAS ops, we had some different drones flying. We had Jefferson City Police Reconstruction, Missouri Task Force 1. They did a safety overview flight on the operations. We had a hobbyist that came out there to try to mess with the situation purposely. Our news media from the local news media reporting was part of our participants for the class, for the exercise. MoDOT, we were flying out there for traffic management. And then we had Missouri Task Force 1 did some mapping with another particular type of drone out there to map the whole scenario quickly, which turned out that was actually an interesting technique they did. And then we had our drone boss that was running the trying to run and track the whole operation. So lots of different drones and coordination on it. So for the exercise itself, we had about 43 people participating, so quite a large group of folks that came out to actually participate in the event. 22 different response units and 6 different UAS that were up at different times and flying through the area. So lots of coordination. And then before the exercise, we did have a 2-hour refresher. So we brought in all the participants. So there was actually more than 43 folks that were there, but we brought in all the participants and anybody that was involved into it, and held a 2-hour refresher for everybody, going over the basic components of TIM. Everybody had been TIM trained before, but it was new to our refresher to some folks, and it might have been new to a few other people, just to get some of the components down for traffic incident management and the aspects of it, trying to get things going onto it. So next slide, please. One of the things that we did is we asked each of the disciplines, what do you as an agency or participating agency want to get out of it? So what does MoDOT want to get out of it? What does the fire department want to get out of it? So what do we want to do it? So we talked about, hey, let's make sure we get vehicle positioning, and let's put a drone boss in place and try that. Removal and recovery was an important aspect of the part of it. Communication, I'll go into that here in just a minute. Scene safety, making sure that the scene was safe, having news media out there as a component, not always invited to all of our exercises that we participate in. Extrication was important to get that into there for the fire agencies. Unified command, the passenger transfer, we did have a bus that flipped over with multiple transports. Traffic control involved on making sure we had traffic control investigation involved into it. So there's kind of an overview of the track itself, and a guesstimate, or just kind of a snapshot, a little video snapshot of where the flights in general were going on and how we had things staged out in different areas. We staged some of the equipment down on the right-hand side. You'll see kind of in the yellow that it's kind of hard to read out there. We had some things staged on the upper side and other things staged on the left-hand side, and then different dispatching. That tower that I showed at the very beginning, I said, hey, there's the patrol. It's not a prison tower. That's an overview tower for scene safety, and we actually use that as the dispatch center, so they could dispatch to everybody. And then we started dispatching units in a time sequence, because we didn't want everybody arriving on the scene. So when are we going to dispatch law enforcement? When is fire going to be dispatched? EMS. So we did that about every few minutes, so everybody would start getting out into the scene at different time frames. And we also used our MOSWIN radio system. It's our Missouri statewide interoperable network, putting everyone on one frequency. That was new to us too, because usually fire talks to fire, law enforcement to law enforcement, and DOT to DOT, same type of aspects. And we talk about lots of interoperable communications, and we have the ability to network that in and do that, but we don't really practice that very often. So we decided to try that this time, and it worked, but it was a little bit of a strain on trying to control everything. A lot of over talking, or getting bonked, I should say, with the new radio systems. They kind of bonk you out the system, and we have to wait for something to open up onto it. So that created its own challenges, but it was good to know how to do that. And some agencies aren't on the same network, such as TOW. So we gave it to them. You'll see that in a video. You'll see them when you watch the TOW folks. They're kind of looking at their radios and walkie-talkies. So how do we use that? But we did have a quick training on how to do that, but we started handing that out to them before the video starts. I'll mention that too. When we had people pulling in and onto the track, we made sure everybody could check onto the course with their communications. So we did a comm check for every unit that came onto the pulled onto the course to make sure that they knew where they were going and that they had communications and were on the right frequency. Next slide, please. One thing that we were concerned about or wanted to make sure we had was we wanted to put some advanced warning signs on for the DOT aspect for traffic control, trying to put those out at different areas and different locations. So telling our ER folks, hey, we want to have our signs out to it, get some tapers and buffers. In our rural areas, in the urban areas of MoDOT, we have a emergency, we call them emergency response or motorist assistance. We have the safety service patrol aspect, motorist assistance aspect of our ER in the urban areas in Missouri, the St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield areas, but in rural Missouri, where lots of our crashes will happen also, we just have traffic control folks. So they'll do traffic control, but they won't change tires or give out fuel or anything like that. And they have limited resources. So we gave them limited resources with the cones and said, you need to do what you can with the tools and equipment you have, things like that. So we didn't want to throw out more resources than would typically be available. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, we had the staging areas where they stage. There's a quick map of it on the upper part and kind of the middle section. You'll see the big wide shoulders where we park the vehicles beforehand. A couple of days before the exercise, we had the tow agencies bring in and start staging, or at least dropping off the equipment, the bus, a couple of the other cars that they were going to chop up and do the extrication on, just so that morning it wasn't as hectic. And then right after the class, they went ahead and staged them into the crash scenario that we wanted to beforehand. And then the fire departments had some of their fog machines and set those up to kind of make it look like smoky and foggy into the areas. So there was some pre-staging on all that. Next slide, please. And then before we start, we're going to do a video clip here. I'm going to let it talk. Hopefully the audio will come through here. The very beginning is a little bit soft, but you'll see that we handed radios to some of the folks. We were doing check-ins, so you're going to see a little bit of them flowing into it. And then after about 30 seconds or so, it's only a few minute clip, and after about 30 seconds or so, you're going to get the perspective from the reporter. Now, Dominic is an actual reporter with a local news agency, but he participated from all the planning exercises. He knows what to do, but he came in there as any reporter would and just played his reporter part and actually parked in the wrong location and did a whole bunch of other things. But he's also one of those one of their drone pilots that does a lot of the drone reporting on it. And this kind of gives that different viewpoint from a different responder from our private partners on how they come onto the scenes and how they kind of track some things. So kind of interesting, I think, that I thought I'd share with you. Go ahead and play the video if you don't mind. And so not too much audio at the beginning of it. You'll see him kind of, okay, how do I work this scene? We told him how to do that. We did have check-in with the Red Cross checking folks in there and then making sure that they did radio calls and check-ins onto it. Onto the scene. Then I said, the whole track for safety, and they were doing dispatch.
Owen, be advised we are starting the exercise.
We're hearing over the scanner that we've got multiple vehicle crash involved with multiple occupants, and we're hearing that over our scanner, so we're going to go ahead and get moving on that way. I'm going to get moving out there. As you know, like, this is a call that I got over the radio, and so I typically get the scanner call in the newsroom and I just get going. I want to get out there as soon as I possibly can. I want to be able to see what the firefighters are seeing, and also try to gather as much video footage as possible and ask as many questions as possible. Right now I'm on the track, sort of making my way past the other units that are on scene here. So I'm going to get up to the scene. I'm going to try to see what I can put together here. Park on the front end, is it better?
Yeah, go down past that Ford truck and you can park on the far right.
Okay, thanks. Hey, news media.
Hello, Sergeant Leonard from the police department, acting as drone boss today.
Okay.
So do you have a drone?
I do have a drone. I'm hoping to fly
on putting it in the air
as soon as possible.
Okay. I'd ask you just coordinate with me first, so we can just keep track, keep everyone separate. When you're ready, just let me know, and we'll talk about what you want to do and where you want to be.
Okay. Is this the safest place to park?
This is a safe place to park, but I do ask you to watch. There is traffic in this lane here, and just stay off into the grass if we need.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know anybody other pilots around here who might be piloting right now? That's not my drone, so I don't know whose drone that is. Could be somebody else piloting in the area. I don't know if they talked to you yet. They might not even be certified. Right now I'm gonna go ahead and get my drone out of the box. I've talked to the police officers. I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to set up there. They've sort of given me the green light, told me where I need to stay, and everything that I pretty much need to know about this scene. I've already got some video from the ground, just so I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on what's surrounding the scene. Also talk to the officers as well.
Hello, sir. That is, thank you for pointing that out to me. That was just a hobbyist pilot. They do have their 107 license. They're going to stay from your car downstream that way.
Okay.
What altitudes are you wanting to get at?
I think I'm going to stay, you know, below 100 feet, and I'm going to orbit probably from this side of the road and around sort of a semicircle from around this side here.
Okay.
So
I will say, you're not live streaming or anything?
I'm not live streaming, no.
I do say be sensitive if there's pulling out people out of there injured. I'm not sure if there's fatalities or not. But just be mindful of that, and you don't want to upset people, your viewers,
okay,
or we want to respect the privacy of our patients.
Okay, so we got this team's flying. Any other teams that you might know? Anybody else flying around?
Yeah, we have.
They're not in one drone over there.
They're not playing in this scenario. Okay. We have one hobbyist. Is all we have right now, and we're talking with MoDOT right now.
Okay, cool.
So if you want to stay in this area around,
stay around this side. Okay.
Now I'm fine with that, and give you up to 100 foot.
Yeah, 100 foot.
Can you let me know when you take off and when you land?
I can.
Okay,
yeah.
We'll be in this gray truck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate cooperation.
Hey, MoDOT's going to be at 60 feet.
60 feet?
Yep, they're going to
okay.
be at 60.
Okay, thanks.
So this is just the fly. This is just kind of a quick flyover, kind of a quick scene setup, and then we'll kind of do some overheads. You'll see him fly off this drone and do a little bit more. So the quick scene setup, the bus that was flipped over. We did have the tow agency that was out there. The drone
okay.
boss set up. You can see the storage.
Check my sky. I got a drone up on top over here actually, so I'm gonna watch out for this guy.
That UAV is actually going to be at above 100.
That one over here?
That one is. That one.
This one
Oh, that
here is above 100 feet. I need you
okay.
below 100,
okay.
100 or below.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
So this part, there's really no audio to. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. He was trying to coordinate. So as we had the different drones flying, figuring out which altitudes people are going to be flying at and which areas. So it was very more stressful, I think, for the drone boss at different times, or the flight operations supervisor, I should say, properly say, but trying to figure that out. You'll see as the flyover goes through, they're trying to do things concurrently, just as we teach in TIM, whether they're trying to do recovery at the same time, fires trying to do some wrapping up recovery or investigation that's going on onto the scene. Here's a couple of shots of some of the different drones that that we were using. That's from Missouri Task Force 1. That's the drone that flies over and shoots the shot the entire scene within about 15 minutes to give a really nice readout and mapping of where everything was. So that's their main mapping drone that carries data and also shoots live recordings of what they're seeing in the region from Task Force 1. So next slide, please. Yeah, just next couple of clicks there, and you'll see we just had did an after action review. about 2 weeks later, about 2 hours long, showed videos, had discussions of what went well, what didn't go well. The drone boss, the communications were, as always, in any after action review. It was tough to make sure everyone was on that one channel, that one go-to channel. It seemed to be better if people were using their dispatch centers and making sure the dispatch centers could talk to each other on the channel. And then the drone boss should not be, at least in our opinion at the time, should not be the same person that's actually flying for the reconstruction. It needs to really be a separate person trying to keep track of all the different drones in the area, who's up, who's down, or live flights coming in, different altitudes, making sure everything's going on. So it seemed to be, and plus they're using phones as communication for that aspect. I'm flying one here. I think we had a hobbyist drone that we threw at him and didn't know about it. So that it proved to be a bit of a challenge to him, but we're seeing more and more of this happen onto it. So it's a good thing that we have implemented this into our exercise, and we'll probably be doing that more into exercises as we rotate this throughout the state in the next few years as we continue to go through it. That's pretty much my next slide, just a question. So that's pretty much my presentation. Hopefully you could hear most of it. I apologize for the audio.
Yeah, we could hear most of it. When you did fade out, you could, if you listen intently, you could still hear it towards the end there. But hey, that is excellent presentation, Owen, and excellent work you guys did out there. And perfect. You know, a couple of things I just want to mention. You included everything. I love it, and I love the 2-hour refresher, for example. Before you went out there, you kind of went over everything. We love the having the news media involved. They're actually your partner. I know you have to be careful with the news media. They're always looking for something bad to talk about, and this was something good that was going on. Making them your friend is tremendous advice. You know, you thought through everything. Great. The Airbus, I think, is coming at us, right? We're talking about UAS use more and more and more, and people got to start thinking about it. So I think that you did a fantastic job, and even throwing in that amateur that's out there with the drone. I mean, it's just a tremendous exercise you guys did. And last but not least, I'll stop talking so we can move to the next presenter. Is I love using the drone to kind of look at the scene setup, see how, is everything to where it's supposed to be. We can use it for the after action. We can use it for training. This guy vehicles not positioned properly, or something like that. So, I mean, just so many aspects of Tim that were covered there. And I only mentioned a few. Those are just a few things that jumped out at me, Owen. So that's just a tremendous kudos to you guys for putting that together and for the work you did. And thanks again for your presentation.
Thank you.
And your partnership. So